Now, electric car maker Tesla has a value of between $60 and $70 billion. It's been trading as a public company for 8 years, but it has never made an annual profit. Elon Musk's vision of integrating clean energy with transport and home power, some might say, is the perfect marriage. But is Tesla on the cusp of profitability, or is this a bubble? Well, joining us now from London is Arash Massoudi. Arash is the corporate finance and deals editor at the Financial Times in London. Thanks very much for being with us. So first off, what is the latest that you're hearing on the company possibly going private? Obviously, Mr. Musk has been tweeting about this, and then it's caused quite a ripple in the financial community. But what exactly is going on?
Well, so I think we should probably start at the beginning, which was a story that I broke with the Financial Times, that the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund had secretly, kind of quietly built about a 4.6% stake in Tesla. We broke that story roughly 2 weeks ago, and it sparked a chain of events which has led us to where we are now. 30 minutes after our story broke, Elon Musk took to Twitter and said he was considering taking Tesla private at a 20% premium or so to where the stock was trading, saying he had the quote-unquote funding secured. And that basically unleashed this chain of events, which is roughly, as far as I can tell, unprecedented in terms of corporate finance and takeover battles in history, where a CEO takes to social media and amplifies another organization's story and basically uses it to really change the narrative around his company. So where we are at the end of these 2 weeks is really not much further than when we started, because Musk may have taken some actions which violated SEC policies, Securities and Exchange Commission policies, which have sparked a series of investigations into his actions, and as a result also left him scrambling to put together this plan and make it look like there was actually more meat than there was on the bone. And so at the moment, banks are all running around trying to figure out whether they want to even work with him on this, because it's such a wild idea and proposal and seems seemingly unrealistic, and at the same time not wanting to miss out on potentially the largest leverage buyout in history.
And on the all-important question of profitability, which we mentioned at the top there, when do you think it might turn a profit?
I mean, there's no indication that Tesla will turn a profit anytime soon. It's burning cash at a phenomenal rate. It can barely produce a couple thousand cars a year. It can't keep up with demand from consumers. And so there's no sign of profitability in the foreseeable future. And then you read constant stories about problems with the cars, problems with deliveries. It's a sort of endless stream of negative news. But what keeps this company going and what keeps the belief of investors there is this sort of cultish icon of Elon Musk, where he can captivate the market into seeing his vision, and he just dreams big. We're in a world where, as one person wrote, Silicon Valley entrepreneurs are creating these really micro startups that really have no real direction, but will create sort of very profitable companies for their enterprise and some sort of back office software. Well, Elon Musk doesn't do that. Elon Musk sets visionary ideas out and says, I'm going to change the way transportation works. I'm going to change the way energy works. And then he lays out these really attractive narratives, which obviously in a world where there's a bunch of small ideas, we all want big ideas. And so that can captivate the market and investors who are willing to back an entrepreneur. But the facts and the details, when you dig into them, present a much murkier picture. And that's why so many people have bet against Tesla's stock. It's one of the most bet against stocks in the US market. And there's a lot of people who expect this company to come crashing down and have bet a lot of money against him.
Yeah, well, that gets to my next question then. Is this really sustainable? I mean, if you talked there a lot about the negative side of this, the money they're spending, there's problems with supply lines and all. Is this a bubble that's going to burst?
Well, I mean, it's sort of, the Tesla story is part of our story of where we are in the world right now. There's so many different bubbles that we're in. We're in a real estate bubble, we're in a technology bubble, and Tesla sort of encapsulates one of these bubbles. Now, the way that they can get through this is if they actually just focus on building cars and delivering and meeting their demand. I mean, that is clearly the best way to run this company. If he can meet the thousands of supply orders that he's already registered and deliver those cars to consumers, then you can see a foreseeable run rate for Tesla to survive. But this is a company that produces a fraction of what Ford, GM, et cetera, produce on an annual basis, and yet has a higher market value. And at some point, reality will catch up if Musk can't deliver.
Why would Elon Musk want to bring the company into private hands? Like, what would be his motivation for that?
Well, again, that feeds into one of the themes of our time, which is that the markets are extremely short-term oriented, right? Investors want returns, they want profits. If you think about all the activist investors who are squeezing pennies out of companies and torturing CEOs for more capital returned or more aggressive action, we're sort of in this rampant environment where hedge funds and portfolio managers are demanding maximum amount of stuff from big companies, and oftentimes it's very hard to deliver. And you couple that with someone with the ego of Elon Musk, which must be among the top 5 biggest in the business world based on his behavior on Twitter. That's the only rational calculation one can make. You can see how that would be deeply offensive to someone, and you can see through his actions that it's almost a personal vendetta, that he wants to burn the short sellers and prove them wrong. And so this has created an incredible distraction around his company and himself, where he's not focusing on the execution. So I think part of his argument is, if I can get this company private, then I don't have to deal with these massive distractions and I can focus on doing that. Problem is that it's really cute to want that, but also you relied on the public markets to get to where you are. You didn't magically become a $60 billion company without having sold things to investors and sold things to the public. And so to then say, actually, the public be damned, is a bit of a hypocrisy in its own sense. So there's a lot of questions here that still remain unanswered. One other major topic that is relevant here is the corporate governance around Tesla. The board includes his brother. Its quote-unquote lead independent director is someone who's been named in court filings as his close friend. So it's basically a mockery to corporate governance, the Tesla board. And therefore, that's another big issue that's under examination now. How can a U.S. company have such a captured board that is close to the CEO? And the board is very much on trial right now. So the last 2 weeks have really been a story about the board and the special committee of the board desperately fighting to maintain some semblance of independence so they don't get sued to death.
What would the implications be for Tesla shareholders if there's a private buyout, both institutional and individual shareholders? Talk us through what's involved for them there.
Well, so in a traditional sense, if you want to take a public company private, the easiest way to do that is a quote-unquote leverage buyout, where you take a slice of equity and a bunch of borrowings, you saddle the company up, you offer a premium to the share price, and then everyone gets the premium and sells their shares, and then you take the company private with your new ownership team. Unfortunately, that only works when you have a cash flow positive company, because creditors don't want to lend you money if you're burning through money and you have no capacity to pay back the money. So to basically launch the world's biggest leverage buyout in history is impossible here, and therefore none of the world's major banks will participate in such a plan, because Tesla doesn't have the capacity to repay its debts. It's burning through cash, as we've established. So then you have to find another way. And so the idea that they're discussing is this quote-unquote going dark philosophy, where a small group of shareholders will buy out other shareholders and take the company private with minimal equity checks, which is why everyone got excited about the way Musk spun the Saudi line that we broke. But unfortunately, my reporting suggests that the Saudis have no intention of sort of funding an extra, $5, $10, $15 billion to take the company private. And if they had discussions, it was very, very informal and not of the nature and development that Musk might have suggested through his tweets and his subsequent communications to the market.
Just to pick up on the Saudi connection, why would the Saudis want to finance Tesla's exit from the stock market then? What's in it for them?
Well, no discussion about Saudi Arabia can take place these days without discussion of the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, the sort of gregarious 32-year-old who's leading the country, trying to transform its economy. And the vehicle through which he's doing that, and to take the company's reliance off of oil, is the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is called the Public Investment Fund. It has about $250 billion in assets. He wants to grow it to $400 billion by 2020. He wants 25% of those assets to be in overseas holdings. And that's why, and he's clearly a guy who's attracted by people who have big ideas, who are trying to really change industries. That's why they went and invested $3.5 billion in Uber. That's why they gave $45 billion to Japan's SoftBank and Masayoshi Son to have this incredibly large tech investment fund, which everyone has been talking about for the last 2 years. It's why he's put $1 billion in Virgin Galactic with Richard Branson. It's why he's put up to $20 billion with Steve Schwarzman and Blackstone. And this is very much in line with those bets. A big entrepreneur trying to change an industry, potentially even a hedge to Saudi Arabia's oil-based economy by investing in electric cars and with Elon Musk. And the way I reported the story was to say that when Mohammed bin Salman went to the U.S. in March and April of this year, he in Tesla soon after, he and the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund soon after approached Tesla and said, we'd be interested in buying newly issued shares to both help support your company, but also we'd like to be an investor. And Musk, for whatever reason, did not accept that offer. And so the Saudis, with the help of JP Morgan Chase, built the stake in the Tesla stock in the subsequent weeks and months, and it was private until I broke the story.
Arash Massoudi, good to speak with you.
Thanks.